Welcome back. You here at Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about the movement to just quit your job and become an entrepreneur. So before we get into that, I saw this video pop up, couldn't track it down though. It was some Korean girl in tears because a guy didn't return her feelings. And she's maybe 20, 21 years old, so a whole life ahead of her, but a normal thing to go through, especially at that age. But if you look at the comments, it's rejection is God's protection. Girl, you're perfect. You don't deserve you. Oh, you can overcome this. You're amazing. This endless slew of pats on the back, reassurance, validation. Whereas if you were some bald cell talking about the same thing, they'd be like, why you gotta be so freaking negative all the time? I'm not in a mean way, but I'm tempted when I see these videos pop up to go in the comments and just say, hey, you're just so brave. My advice would be lift weights, work on your personality, stop being a victim, change your style, have a different haircut, go to Starbucks and cold approach men. You know, but obviously, I'll probably get attacked if I do that. I don't think society is ready for that conversation of, oh, yeah, this is basically what a lot of guys go through. There was a different video, this one by a light skinned brother, saying you can't get a relationship. And the dude obviously is in shape. But nonetheless, the guy goes in the comments like, hey, bro, my advice is consider lifting weights. It's amazing when you get those early gains and women are just obsessed with you. Yeah, you're definitely getting women from lifting weights for a few months. The point is, other individuals in the comments were saying, oh, you look like a model. I thought that was maybe a bit much. I honestly believe a great swath of the interwebs is just people with a pre-programmed reply. Like when I talked about the SVB collapse, what, 2, 3 years ago, and this guy just replies, why are you blaming capitalism? It's not capitalism's fault. I said, did you watch the video? No, what did you say? Yeah, okay, pretty much what we understand. People don't want to absorb any information. That's what we typically see. But getting back into the main topic of the video, you see this stuff. Oh, I escaped the 9 to 5. I have freedom. I'm just going to be employed on my own terms. And I laud this sentiment. I think it's good to not be in a boomer mindset where you feel that you can't escape from those shackles. The question I would have is how many of these folks have any realistic plan whatsoever? You might go, they don't need one. Okay. Victor Pride would tell you just quit your job and start a business. I think this is a pretty bad idea, especially nowadays, but maybe I'm just not courageous enough. The thing is, let's say you're planning to quit your job because your art on Etsy is really popular, you're selling a ton, or you built an app everyone wants. You're going to walk or sit dogs, mow lawns, that kind of thing. All right, there's something relatively tangible. You have a plan, hopefully some clientele built up. On the reverse side, if you're saying, well, I'm just going to join the gig economy, my friends, the gig economy is not doing very well. Perhaps if you get into roadie, if you are in an area with a bunch of prescription deliveries, you might make $100 a day. Or if you have a very large vehicle, you can take wide loads. Remember, did you guys grow up ever reading the Richard Scarry books? Everyone knew what Hilda Hippo represented, but he was a genius for using animals. Anyway, so my point being, that would be one option. But if you're thinking that you're going to pay your rent with the gig economy, I don't know about that. Are you going to live in your car? By the way, especially if you're a female, I do not advise going and living in your Hyundai Sonata in the near future, okay? This country is going to get kind of gnarly. Even if they don't pass the full version of the BBW bill, it's going to be scaled down. There's not going to be substantial enough cuts, so inflation is going to continue. You have this trade uncertainty. I suspect as things get worse, there's going to be probably more petty crime. And if you're a female, you don't want to be out in the public in that type of environment. I was thinking if I do the double job, because basically extended stay for 2 nights a week, just to avoid having to commute constantly, would be the equivalent of almost $800 a month. So at that point, you might as well rent a room Although alternatively, there's a AC unit you can buy, which is essentially it mounts on the window of your car and it runs off a battery for 6 hours. So in other words, you can sleep comfortably even when it's muggy and hot outside. I'm perfectly all right with freezing cold weather. You just bundle up, have a nice sleeping bag. But when it gets all that, you got bugs, you're waking up sweaty, it just isn't going to cut it. And this thing is 1800 with one battery or 2500 with another. Depending on how long you do it, might be a better deal because even if you say 3, 4 months, but you could still sell it used to someone, make even $1,000. So I'm going to definitely try to find some reviews for that particular offering. In the event, as it's very likely the gig economy does not work for you, regardless of whether you're living in a vehicle, you could say, I'm going to get some labor at retail, or I'm going to work in a warehouse part time. Well, now you're not really free. You are going to have to punch in and punch out. Plus, what are you going to do for stuff like your food? What are you going to be purchasing? Where are you going to store it? God forbid you have to shop at Dollar General. You know, at Dollar General, one stick of Old Spice is $8. I mean, I love that stuff, but my gosh. And I think I'm going to ask out the brunette working there. She's like this tall country chick. You know, I have a theory which is going against the grain that the next several years, unless we devolve into outright civil war, which is probably true to an extent because as things go downhill, the animosity will be directed at the foreigners who don't have money in particular. And as I noted previously, the FBAs, because you have all this Palantir surveillance going on, and a lot of FBAs are being caught acting like fools. If you understand history, when there's less times of plenty, certain minorities oftentimes become the subject of much rage pilling. But returning to women working in a place like Dollar General, if you are a normie with resources, with independent shelter, with money coming in, and you know how to dress reasonably well, and you're friendly, you have a chipper attitude, I suspect you're going to have a pretty good time going forward. I want to expand on this in another video, but Brother Stardust had done a segment years ago called The Repairman that was taken down but then re-uploaded, where he said that women would start returning to a different state, almost embracing the trad. You have to think about it. If you're one of these females, your family is not wealthy, you don't have money for college or inclination, as AI advances, it's going to knock out certain roles like being a dental assistant, being the front desk at a medical office, that sort of thing. Retail, there'll still be people, but it'll be downsized. So their options are essentially you either work your way up to be the manager of the place, which is a low paid job, stressful, you can't take any vacation, you probably end up stealing from the cash register. Many of them do. Or you can try to monetize your booty online, but that's going to be oversaturated, and there's no guarantee that a Becky is going to have all that much of a following. You could do seeking arrangement, sure, that's one option. Or you can find some local normie who talks to you and try to get in that environment. I mean, consider it. You've got a Latina, she's in a house with her family, her abuela, cousins, two aunts, two uncles. One of those uncles doesn't know how to keep his hands to himself. She has absolutely no privacy. She's going to jump at the chance. You have some country white chick who's in a double wide in the trailer park. They want to get out of there. The lifestyle they're seeing now, as positions are eliminated or with the inflation, those wages just don't cut it, they're not going to be able to travel. They're not going to be able to get their nails done, get their hair done. And so you might be able to capitalize on it, just saying, if you're in that position. It's not going to apply to everyone. It depends what role you have and how insulated you happen to be from technological change. I'm not a believer, by the way, all these jobs are going to go away, but a decent chunk will. Because things on the ground aren't so hot, it's easy to fall prey into this delusion that, oh, I'll just start a YouTube channel. That's how I'll be my business. I'll be a content creator. And if you thought that your cubicle white collar job was the rat race, YouTube isn't necessarily going to be much better. There's two primary strategies that work. One is you spend hours and hours doing research, putting together a studio quality documentary and releasing it perhaps once every 2 or 3 weeks to a large and devoted audience. Alternatively, you just spam upload response videos, live streams, you go on other people's streams, you're in a comment section, you're always promoting. And that might be an option, but just remember you can't stop. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to take a vacation here because if you go too many days off, Google's going to be like, oh, scientific management principles, you're not performing properly, your output is subpar, and then you will begin to see a collapse in how much money you make. In relation to that, if you're banking on AdSense, remember, supposing a decent chunk of jobs are lost, including some of these corporate girl boss positions. Well, are corporations going to still pay for ads on YouTube if a lot of the folks who were contributing, maybe being willing to buy those products, no longer have the same income? Don't assume everyone's going to get a Andrew Yang buck check right away. America will cast tens of millions of people into poverty before it reacts. This is how the history of the country has been. So these people might go to living on savings or being unemployed. You think they're all going to be able to keep throwing dollars, $10, $20 a month in your direction or buying these products? Amazon with, I want to say it was paperback books, but the royalty dropped from 60 to 50%, and it'll probably get worse in the coming years. What if they reduce how much they pay for ads on YouTube? What if people can't donate to your channel anymore? And this is very common because people struggle with even getting to the point where they can be monetized. They will fall back on basically e-begging. There was a dude, he said, I quit my six-figure job and just became a hermit and wrote a novel. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, where's his novel? There's no link to it. Help me crowdfund so I can write a second novel. This is what it's becoming. So you might be able to scrape out a little bit in AdSense, some donations, but remember, relying on that, don't expect it to be some part-time thing. Your life's gonna be consumed, and you're gonna have to always be attuned to what's going on with the algorithm, what's trending. That can burn you out. Even if you like the content you're doing, give it a year or two, you might be about, I'm just over this. So in some cases, you lost your job to layoff. But before you quit a job that is relatively stable, you got to be careful. Where am I going to go next? What is my plan? Because being a poverty cell, it sounds nice, but it's not that great. And there's a lot of videos on people, what their experience is like. Just briefly before we close, a couple of jobs actually interrelated you can look at if you want to be truly AI proof, if you're freaking out. One is driving these trucks to pump out the porta-johns. Yes, you heard that correctly. I was talking to this Latino guy. Man, he was happy as a clam. He said unlimited overtime. They're trying to crack down on it, but they can't really because no one wants to do the work. And it's going to be there. As long as there's construction sites, as long as there's events, as long as there's pretty much anything, it's going to be there. Alternatively, wastewater treatment plants, clean water plants. Anything to do with that process, it's going to still be ever present. Unless they tell folks to just dig holes. And frankly, you could look at waste management as well. Maybe we'll get to the point where you can just incinerate it automatically in your own home and it turns into, what, dust? But this will be the mainstay, irrespective of how technology changes. I'm sure that the plants, at a certain point, the SCADAs will be more advanced and AI will be integrated, but it'll still need people watching the watchers, so to speak, because if something goes wrong, it's a massive liability. Basically, any field where there's a huge liability if something goes wrong, humans are not going to disappear because it's a lot easier to blame the human. It's a lot easier to limit your insurance rates if you have a fall guy than if it's just a robot, it's a program, that sort of thing. So go ahead. If you have other ideas, drop them in the comments. I just want to caution people. If you're looking to quit your job and you're not certain you're going to be able to get it back, you have to be really thinking, do I have enough money going out, 6, 12 months to where if my gig economy dreams don't work, if my business stuff doesn't work, I'll be having a leg to stand on. And once more, especially if you're a woman, do not go and do van life or car life in the near future because it's probably going to get ugly. And that isn't doomer talk. This is just being entirely practical. Goldberg out.